Welcome to the Domain Name Wire podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Alleman, and this is episode number 547. My guests on this week's show are Mark Levine and Logan Flatt. These two domain investors are two of my most popular guests on the show. I have them on from time to time to talk about how their domain sales are going, and more than anyone else I know, these two are an open book. On today's show, they'll disclose their results from the first half of this year and compare that to the first half of 2024. We'll talk about sell-through rates, pricing, where they are buying and selling their domains, and their strategies. Get out a pen and paper because you'll want to take notes. First, a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor this week is Sav.com Domain Backordering. Unlike other backordering services that start at $59 or $69, you can backorder .com domains at Sav for only $10.49. This week, you can bid on domains like tomorrow.pro, courthouses.org, cnd.us, and more. Plus, when you create your Sav.com account, you can take advantage of low fees on all of your domains, such as new .com domains for $10.49. It's the same price as back orders. If you've downloaded the Domain Name Wire app, check out the Domain Picks tab where I highlight upcoming auctions at Sav. Start back ordering at Sav.com. Go to sav.com/DNW/backorder. That's sav.com/DNW/backorder. All right, let's run through some news from the domain business from the past week before we chat with Mark and Logan. And also a reminder to download the Domain Name Wire app. If you have an iPhone or iPad, go to dnw.com/Apple. If you're on an Android device, it's dnw.com/Android. Well, both GoDaddy and Tucows reported Q2 earnings last week, and the news on the domains front was pretty good. GoDaddy reported strong sales in both new domain registrations and aftermarket sales, with both up 7% year over year in terms of revenue. The average aftermarket transaction was $312, up from $258 a year ago. The company did warn that losing the .co registry business will drag on its Q4 results. Later this year, that will transition to Team Internet Group. Tucows said expired domain sales continue to help its bottom line. It sells most of its expired domains through GoDaddy. Speaking of which, I also reported last week that GoDaddy recently picked up the expired domain inventory from both Squarespace and Wix. Looking forward, Tucows' registry business will get a boost from winning Radix's back-end contract and a deal announced last week. It will add 10 million domains to the registry, more than doubling its current base to 17 million domains. Its biggest other customer is India's .in namespace. Well, new data from Identity Digital analyzing Y Combinator and Techstars startups shows a startling increase in the number of startups using .ai domain names. 28% of companies in Y Combinator and Techstars this year, so far to date, are using .ai domain names. That's up from just 7% in 2020. The share of businesses using .com has shrunk considerably from 64% in 2020 to 46% this year. It also appears that .ai might be taking a bite out of .io, which peaked at 10% of these companies in 2022 and now sits at 5%. Identity Digital provides back-end services for .ai and runs the .io registry. Well, there's more news at domainnamewire.com, including reports about a slew of reverse domain name hijacking cases, so check that out. But now, let's chat with Mark and Logan. My guests this week are Mark Levine of Domain Theory and Logan Flatt of Media Code. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Andrew, always a pleasure.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right. And I know listeners are happy too. This is one of the most popular shows where Mark and Logan go through their domain sales, talk about which top level domains they're selling, where they're selling them, how their year's going, etc. We are, our benchmark here, we're looking at the first half of 2025 and comparing it to the first half of 2024. We'll just jump right into it with Logan. On a percentage basis, how are your sales so far this year compared to last year?
Well, this is definitely my best year so far ever. And comparing, the first half of this year to first half of last year, I'm up 168% year over year. It's going great. And that's with a smaller average portfolio size. Like I've lost about 100 names. I've let them go. Last year I was about 2,800 at this time. And this year I'm down to 2,700. I'm producing much more revenue with a smaller portfolio size, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in a minute, we'll dig into why that is. But Mark, how about you? How was your first half of the year?
I'm no Logan Flatt, I can tell you that. I'm down about 15% in revenue and, a few sales shorter than where I was last year at this time. So it's okay. I mean, last year at this time, I had like 5 sales that were over 20 grand. And right now through the end of June, I only had 1. So that kind of tells the tale. The domain gods have to be smiling to have those, good numbers. And, I just didn't have those big sales yet. So hopefully when we talk in February, I'm going to be Logan.
The big rebound in the second half. And just to kind of paint the picture here, both these guys, we're talking 6 figures here of sales easily already this year. And so, Logan, let's go back to you here. So you mentioned fewer domains, about 2,700 domains. How many domains did you sell in the first half of this year compared to last year?
So far, first half of this year, I've sold 24 versus last year I sold 26. So down about 7 or 8%.
Just a couple of names, sure.
But my last year was just like this year. Like last year, I had all 4-figure sales. I mean, I didn't have any 5-figure sales. This year, I've had like 7 5-figure sales. So his experience this year is very similar to my experience last year. Just our years are flipped. But I will say that, of the 24 that I sold this year, 7 were sales that were lease-to-owns from prior years that closed this year. And I book my sales based on the lease-to-owns when they finish.
Okay.
And the domain name is transferred away from me. So that's what I call a sale when it's all paid for. So I've had 7 of those this year. And a lot of those were 5-figure sales from previous years that finally closed in 2025. And so I booked them this year.
Okay. And that, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually go ahead and include it in the year that the lease to own begins, right?
Correct. I report the income for taxes, of course, as it comes in. But in terms of like doing these kind of podcasts, I like to look at the sale when it happened because it gives me an idea of how the year is, just in the momentum, the feeling, where buyers are. So in my numbers, I don't include lease to own revenue that I'm getting in 2025.
Okay, so in your numbers, you count it when the transaction occurs, when the transfer occurs.
And then, if an LTO stops somewhere, I readjust the numbers.
Yeah. How are you guys? I mean, are you guys finding many LTOs canceling?
Not lately.
No.
They've been paying.
But both of you keep fairly short periods, though. I mean, Logan, how long do you allow for LTOs?
Yeah, right now I'm doing 13 months typically, particularly on after Nick. But if I have any higher value ones over at Adam, I'll do 24 months there.
Okay. And Mark?
I do 13 months on Afternic as well. And on Adam, obviously, they allow you to set a different down payment figure.
Right.
So I'm, especially on higher dollar names, I'm okay to have a longer period as long as I'm getting a pretty healthy chunk up front.
Healthy being 10, 20%?
20 to 25%.
Okay. And both of you picked 13 months. I know y'all talk a lot, but why 13? Where did that come from?
I think we do it for the same reason, because we end up paying a little less commission.
So if it goes over 12 months with Afternic, is that the threshold then where you get like a 5%?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So if someone does it for 12 months, if they move the little slider, they end up paying more per month, obviously, but less overall because they don't have that 5% kicker in there. Logan, let's just talk about your LTOs here. Let's just dig into this a little bit more. So you had 7 complete this year. I think you might have mentioned that. And a couple of those were actually .gg domains that you sold with Mark. I'm getting y'all names confused here. Sorry. So Logan, you had 7. A couple of these were LTOs that you did with Mark, but Mark, of course, you booked, I think, one of these last year because that's when it started, or both of them. So talk to me about these .gg. I know we've had an entire podcast dedicated to .gg. It seems like y'all are still doing well with these, right?
Yeah, I did 2 of those 7 LTOs I had this year were two that he booked last year. Okay. They were wins.gg. So wins.gg for $24,888, which was done over 12 months. And then boost.gg for $34,888 over 12 months as well. So those both started last year and finished this year. So he booked them last year. I booked them this year. From an accounting perspective. So
Sure.
But we never said the name. I never said the names on the podcast. So this is the first time.
So we're revealing these excellent .gg sales that have now been fully completed. So book those. Logan sent me an email yesterday with this data. The first thing I did is I went to Afternic and raised my prices on .gg domains because I was like, and I know, okay, these are somewhat outliers, but you guys still, I mean, your typical GG sale is pretty high, right?
Yeah, we price them high because of the markets that are attracted to GG, which is gaming. And that's both from an esports perspective, but also from a gambling perspective. And so those industries are willing to pay up a little bit more. So, and as long as we focus on great brandable keywords on the SLD side, we feel confident we can get pretty good numbers when they do sell.
I will add that for these GGs, we have spectacular SLDs.
Right.
I mean, there's not an average one in the bunch. So we're not going out and getting 2-word GGs, or they're the cream of the crop that you could get in that extension, or, probably any extension.
Sure. So Mark, you had, let's see, so you've sold 37 names so far this year, and that's down from last year, 42 names. Talk to me about your portfolio size and if that has changed from last year to this year.
It's gone down, I think, by a net of around 300 plus. I've been really focusing on, it's certainly in the GTLDs and the CCTLDs, stuff that does not have a really high number of extensions. I have shed some of those.
Wait, sorry, explain that to me.
Well, just like, let's say I own just for the sake of argument, let's say I own a Dot Academy. If that is not taken in 250 plus extensions, and or I've received a decent amount of traffic or an offer or something, those kind of names are gone. Whereas, so I'm shedding some of those. I've also been shedding some .coms where there's nothing spectacular about that, they're just, it's the only thing that it's taken in, and there's not, like tryxyz.com or getxyz. There's no obvious upgrade to it. Just, some of these closeouts that I've purchased over the years that just have not seen much, and there doesn't seem to be a ton of upside. I'm just trying to get rid of, because when you have a portfolio like mine, and it's not huge compared, I guess, to a lot of people, but, when you have close
it's big though. We're talking about 8,000 names here, right?
Those renewals can add up. So I've been doing some analysis on just cleaning up stuff that really seems to be going nowhere.
And so, okay, so your sell-through rate for the first half of the year was 0.45%. So on an annualized basis, 0.9%, which last year you were slightly over 1%, right? So you are down a little bit on the sell-through rate this year. And then Logan, you mentioned you have about 2,700 names, down roughly 100 from last year. So on a sell-through rate perspective, then let's see, 0.89 for the first half. So annualized, you're at like 1.8%, which is pretty strong, but also down, you mentioned down a couple names from last year. So sell-through rate is down just a little bit, but still a very, very respectable, right? So let's talk about that. Obviously, you've sold about as many names this year as last year, but your price has gone up. So what's your median this year?
Yeah, so this year, my median sale price is twice as it was last year. So I was, this year I'm about 9,400. Last year I was about 4,500. Definitely a lift in prices that I'm getting, which is great. And obviously that's helped with the numbers in total.
Yeah. So you've doubled your median, but your overall sales are up even greater. So obviously you've had some of those outlier big sales. Yeah, let's not call them outliers since you've had a lot of them. But
bigger sales so far this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely moving that one up.
Mark's kind of frowning here, but that's okay.
I mean, I'm happy for Logan.
Yeah.
Obviously.
he's having this year the year I had last year. So.
Now, well, so Mark, how about your median now? How's your median doing compared to last year?
I was pretty happy to see how that it had gone up. It's about 4,900. And last year at this time, it was about 3,500.
Okay.
The year ended up better. I mean, my year got much better at the end of last year. So the median went.
It's going to happen again.
When we talked in February. Well, yeah, with the amount of renovations I'm doing, I needed to start happening.
Need something to pay for.
Yeah.
I'm renovating a bathroom too. And I'm like, man, if I could just have one sweet deal, I'm totally going to upgrade this thing.
I've been like that for the last 4 months.
So your median is up, but of course, median where half are below, half are above. And so your average is probably down, or is definitely down without those big sales in it. But let's go through, if we can talk about some of the top sales. Logan, what are some that you're willing to talk about here?
Yeah, I mean, really the big one for me this year so far has been humanityai.com. I sold that one for about $70,000 on a bin.
Okay, so let's dig into that, because I've got a lot of somethingai.com domains, and I also raised the price on them yesterday after getting your thing. And I have sold a bunch of them, so I kind of know the market for it. But how in the world did you decide to price this one at $70,000?
Because of the word humanity. The big issue with AI is what effect does this artificial intelligence have on humanity, and what impact does it have on our roles in life as human beings? What got me, though, is that I won this domain name for $74.
What?
At Drop Catch.
When?
In 2019.
Okay.
I was the only bidder. That's the opening price. I was the only bidder on humanityai.com in 2019. So I held it for, what is that, 7 years, 6 years? But I priced it at $70,000 or $69,888 because of humanity. I mean, just because of the way that AI has grown since 2019 and the fact that it had the word humanity in there, I just like, this is a killer one. So I priced it accordingly.
Yeah. 2019, that's when I hand registered a bunch of .ai domains. You certainly would not get that domain for that price in a drop catch auction today.
Exactly.
For sure. But it also shows how you can capitalize on AI without registering .ai domains. And I know you have registered some. We'll talk about that in a bit. But what are a couple of your other big ones?
Another big one I had was tiger.bet for $40,000. And that's one that I picked up in 2023. I paid up for it. I paid about $3,500 for it. So I sold it within 2 years or so, I guess, for $40,000, which is a great one. It's good to see.
It's a pretty gutsy buy on a .bet, but you've had some success there, right?
Yeah, but it's also the word tiger. I mean, here the SLD again is a key thing. I mean, the Asian market is huge. Gambling's huge in Asia, and then you have the word tiger, which is a huge Asian animal, particularly in gambling. I was willing to pay up for it. Again, $3,500 when I bought it, and again, I priced this one at like $55 or something like that. So it was negotiated down through Afternic. So that's a good new G TLD, if you will. And then another one I could point out that I had was weedsociety.com. It's one that I, way back in 2020, I did on an LTO for 60 months. And it's one that I hope I never have to do again. 60 months is just way too long. But it was a $15,000 sale at that time, but with all the fees, because it was a 60 months LTO, it came out to $19,500 in the end.
Yeah.
So again, I sold it in 2020, but I didn't book the sale in full until 2025 when all payments were made. And they didn't rush any payments at all. They made every payment on time, all 60 payments, did not pay anything off early. Like I wish they would have. But in this year, they made the 60th payment, and I was able to book it as a sale for $19,500.
Awesome. Mark, do you have any 5 figures this year?
Oh, yeah, I have some.
Are you willing to talk about them?
Yeah, sure. My biggest one is a GG that's still in LTO. So when it goes through, we can talk about it. But that's my biggest. But one of my favorite names I've owned was monkeysuit.com. I've loved, it's like your work suit, you're working for the man, whatever. I had won it at I think I bought it at Cito for about $230 or something. And I sold it for $10,000 this year. And it was one of those names where I don't know if it was really worth 10 grand, but if I love a name, I always price them higher. Because in my head, it's like, well, I might do something with this someday, even though that has never happened in the 20 years I've been doing this. So that's one that I loved. Another one that I would say I loved because I can't believe that it sold for that amount was travel-gpt.com.
Wait, what?
Travel-gpt.com.
Oh, okay.
Which I sold for $5,100. And, those are, I don't even know how I ended up buying some of these, but I got I'd say 15 of those kind of great keyword -GPT, that I hand registered or so, the first one I might have seen at a closeout and been like, oh, well, this is, and then I go look at what travelgpt.com is, or, I see it's priced for some crazy amount. I'm like, well, I'm going to gamble on a name like this and I'm going to give it a couple of years and see what happens. So that, in terms of oh my God, I can't believe that sold. That's in that category.
But you also priced it like that, right? When you thought it wasn't.
Well, right. You have to price it because if someone, and I can't remember if Travel GPT was developed or if
it's not yet. No.
If it was sold, if it was being sold for something, but it was just you got to price it where somebody would take that chance. Although I sort of feel like now if this was Logan, it would be I would have sold it for 20 grand. Logan.
This year, anyway. Let's just give all our names to Logan, have Logan list them, and it'll be a great year.
The other one that I like is streamit.io that I sold for 13 grand.
Nice.
Those are, I'd say, some of my hot. Let me just see if there's anything else.
I assume that travel-GPT was a hand registration.
It was a closeout.
The closeout. Okay.
Closeout in 2024.
Got it. And so for those that haven't listened to prior podcasts with Mark and Logan, Mark really focuses on very inexpensive domains, closeout and such, average acquisition price, this year, roughly $70. Whereas Logan's a little bit higher end. Let's see, what's your average?
That's the names I sold. I wouldn't say that's my average.
Right, your average is less than that.
Way lower.
Okay, and then so Logan, of the names you sold, what's the average acquisition price?
Yeah, this year was $445. Last year was about $279. So I've increased my average cost of sales. Cost of goods sold, I should say. So I'm definitely paying up more than Mark does for domain names. I don't have any closeouts that I sold this year at all. So I certainly don't look at GoDaddy closeouts at all. Whenever I've gone through, I've never found things that I liked enough to buy them typically. So definitely we have two different strategies in that regard. And he does an excellent job at finding the gems in that closeout section.
Let's talk, Mark, of the names that you sold this year. Where did you acquire them?
Hang on a second. Let me take a look. Of the names I sold this year, 8 were from GoDaddy auctions, 8 were hand registrations, 7 were GoDaddy closeouts, 4 were from Dropcatch, 3 were from people on NamePros, 4 were from Snap Names, 1 was from Sav Auctions, Park.io Auction, and Cedo Auction.
And Logan, how about you?
Looks like I had 5 from Dropcatch, 5 from Sav.com, 4 from Docky, 4 from Catch, 2 from Namejet, 2 from Snap Names, 1 from GoDaddy, and 1 from Uniregistries. So
wow.
That must have been a hand reg that I did a long time ago.
Yeah. So only 1 from GoDaddy. So you're not really playing in the GoDaddy auctions, Logan?
Oh, I definitely am. Just did not have sold this year.
This year. Yeah. Got it. Okay. And so let's talk about top level domains as well. Logan, since we're already chatting here, what top level domains have you been selling this year?
Yeah, so it's been 50% .com and 50% non.com. So 12 .com names. And they were things like proofpath.com and profitplay.com. So I like those kind of alliteration names. Like polyconnect.com, things like that. Then I had the other 12 were all non.com. So I had 2 .ios, 2 .ggs, which we've talked about, 2 .cos. I had Petruvian.co and cofounder.co, 2 .bets. So in addition to tiger.bet, I also had one that was bet.bet. And
hold on, let me go hand register bet.bet.
No, those are already gone. We've already looked into those. But I registered bet.bet after bet.bet sold last year. So it's kind of a lark. I did bet.bet, and sure enough, it sold for like $3,500. And then 1.dev, which was stablecoin.dev. So there, again, the SLD was
very good SLD.
1.xyz, 1.ag, which was Titan.ag. And I'm starting to see some activity with .ag this year that I'm kind of excited about because I've always been kind of an investor in .ag. And right now I've got agent.ag on a long-term, or I'm sorry, on a lease-to-own for about 24 months. And it's going to be a 5-figure deal when it finally gets done. I'm definitely sensing something going on with .ag. And I had so far one sale with Titan.ag. And then lastly, I had one .mx. I had one .mx in my whole portfolio. It was smart.mx. And it sold this year finally after, 8 years or something like that.
Did it sell to a Mexican company? Do you know? Let's look it up.
I'm not sure.
Smart. It's still parked. And .ag, hasn't that been mostly adopted by like the agriculture industry? Or am I thinking?
No, it's more offshore casinos. So it's like betonline.ag and sportsbetting.ag. And those are used to kind of avoid being having a legal nexus with the United States. So
because AG is a country code for where?
Anguilla and
in Antigua. And
Barbados.
Okay. Yeah.
But they chose that as a joke for attorneys general, because back in the 90s when they were fighting against the attorneys general in New York and Jersey, they were shutting them down by going after .com in Virginia with VeriSign. The offshore gambling houses basically kind of thumbed their nose at the attorneys general by going with .ag as a extension they could not access because they had no legal nexus to shut them down with that extension. So back in the 90s, that's when they started with .ag. And so it's still going on today. But right now, I think what's going on with .ag has nothing to do with gambling. I think it has to do with agents. I think people might be starting to use .ag as a shorthand for agent. That's my theory, at least, because I sold agent.ag on an LTO. And so I'm thinking, maybe there's something going on there with .ag that's new and related to AI.
Interesting. And Mark, what about you?
So usually when we have this discussion, I'm like Logan, half .com and half everything else. This time, I'm almost all .com. I had 34 .com, 2 IOs, and 1 GG.
Wow.
And that's like, I haven't had that kind of percentage to .com in many years.
Yeah, and for comparison, I mean, last year, this time, half your names were, only half were .com, right? You had a bunch of IOs.
I think it's just the way the way the buyers are. That's just the way it worked out. I can't think of any theory to explain it. Obviously, .com is .com.
Sure.
But, none of these are.
What percentage of your portfolio is com?
Probably 75 to 80.
Okay.
I'm more 50% .com. I'm 50% non.com now, just because of all the CCTLDs and even new Gs that I've been buying. The thing I've been scratching my head about this year so far is I didn't have any .ai sales so far.
Yeah, you've gone kind of big into it this year, right? So talk to me about your buying.
I've been buying .ai every day, but I haven't sold one yet in the first 6 months of 2025, which I'm just kind of surprised because that's definitely what we hear from all our friends and fellow investors out there. They're selling .ai.
Well, now are you hand registering names? Are you buying them on the drops? Or?
I'm doing both. I'm doing auctions. I'm doing hand regs. I'm buying from marketplaces where I think they're undervalued. So I'm just grabbing .ai left and right here and there every day, but just have yet to have a sale. I've got one on an LTO that started this year. And it's about $50K if they finish paying it off. They should finish paying it off in December this year. So I hopefully will be able to book it this year. It's going to be about $50K .ai sale. But again, to me, it's not officially sold yet, right?
Yeah. And how much did you pay for that name?
Oh, man, I can't remember.
Like low 4 figures, probably.
Less than that. That one might be actually a hand reg. So probably $149. It starts with a K. It's one of those brand names that have usually the word starts with a C, but they put a K instead of a C. So I grabbed about 5 of those, I think, as hand regs. And that's the first one that's helping pay for all.
Hand registrations are not cheap in AI, so they do add up.
Yeah, they do.
For sure. So talk to me about where you are selling. So Logan, let's just keep with you for now. Where are you selling these names?
Definitely after Nick. I mean, was it 92% of my sales are after Nick and only 2 at Sato. I haven't tried Spaceship yet, but I'm hearing people talking about it, and I'm starting to look maybe into testing some of that.
I actually bought a .ai name through them yesterday on the aftermarket through Spaceship. It was a pretty easy process, and the seller, of course, only paid 5%, so I'm sure they're happy. So
yeah, I've only had 2 sales this year with Sato, and they're both .coms. One was 10,000, one was 15,000. So definitely after Nick, because we're I put all my effort into making sure that, the landers are working and the prices are right. And everything.
And you're still not boosting, right? You're not using the...
No, I do have boost turned on.
Oh,
I can't say that I sense anything, but maybe my sales have lifted because of boost. I haven't thought about that. You're right. I do have it turned on now.
when did you turn it on?
Probably in March or something this year.
But you were selling well before March as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, where are you selling your names?
Almost all Afrinic, but only because, they're the dominant place. I did sell 3 so far this year at Adam, 3 or 4. I can't remember what I put down. And I like a lot of the things they're doing. I only have a few hundred names on there, so it's not a great...
Are they premium names or just listed?
I moved all of the GGs there because Afrinic no longer supports lease-to-own for GG, which I only found out on my own when it says it does, but when you go look at them, they don't. So I moved all the GGs there, and then I do have some premium. I'd say it's probably 1/3 premium and 2/3. I just took names that either Afrinic and extensions they don't really support and move them all there.
But I'm talking about the listing level, right? So
Yeah, some are in their premium. Of the ones I've sold, I think again, it's not very many, but I think a couple of them were on their standard platform. And the GG that I sold, it was 20 grand. And then with the amount of time and the fees, that my net was almost like 2% commissions. It's good. Again, I haven't spent a ton of time doing stuff there. It was sort of just to get stuff over there that I knew would work better there. But
yeah, I remember last time we talked about it, you said it was just too complicated over there.
Well, they got it is complicated, that they had a lot of features. And one thing I loved about Dan was it was uncomplicated. It was easy to use. It was easy to understand. It was simple. I do think simplicity is always best in this for buyer and seller, especially for this seller. But, the people at Adam are helpful. The more you're in there, you figure it out. Like anything else. And I appreciate the innovation. I do think I want to support innovation. I do think, they're pushing others to innovate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is interesting what you said about .gg, because I've set lease-to-own on mine. So I'm looking at sing.gg, SING, and it says lease-to-own, and it should be showing on a custom lander, and it's just a buy now price. So,
well, better late than never to find out.
Yeah. Thanks.
I guess you got to find out in real time.
Yeah.
Well, I found out from you, and
I know.
I've forgotten. I haven't even more yet. I need to put more.
Okay, so Afrinic, most of them, Adam, and I think you had a sale at Cito as well. So let's talk about, we've got just a few minutes left, so let's kind of talk about what you're doing different or what you're focusing on so far this year. I know, Logan, you already mentioned AI. What are a couple other things that maybe you're doing a little bit different or you're changing up this year?
Definitely focusing on one-word SLDs, particularly in the CCTLDs that I focus on that I think have good end-user demand, things like .io, .ai, .co, .gg, .fi, .vc, and .so. So I'm just focusing on one words there and trying to find those kind of empty vessel brand names like Impulse or Adaptive, Axion, things that there's so many companies out there that use that name. And that I think that they would want to use a word like that on the left of the dot, and then a right of the dot that fits their industry, well. So I'm trying to focus on those kind of investments on the CCTLD side. And then on .com, I'm still doing a lot of 2-word .coms that I think, make good sense. But again, I'm focused on generic keywords there, looking at things like Oasis Pay or Ally Capital. So again, kind of generic words are very empty vessel words there. Again, that companies like to use those kind of names. And I kind of focus on those kind of words in .com. But again, it's much easier for me to compete in a 2-word .com than it is in a 1-word .com. Several of our friends have dominated that space, and they have deeper pockets than I do. I play where I can afford to play and try to do the best I can.
Sure. Do you have a preferred registrar for those CCTLDs, or does it just depend on the CCTLD?
I do a lot at Dynadot these days. I do have some at Sav, but my preference is Dynadot for sure. And when I do, pick up names from auctions, when they come up for renewal, I end up trying to move them to Dynadot.
Got it. Okay. Mark, how about you? Doing anything different or focuses this year other than, knocking on wood to get some more of these 5-figure sales?
Oh yeah, doing something.
Are you wearing your GoDaddy socks? Have you tried?
I found that those GoDaddy socks produce shit for me. So I am not. Now, if I happen to be wearing them and I sold a name, I would wear them every day. I would, whatever. I have not gone. I know a lot of people on X, but like share a sale and I'm going to get a sale. And
they think it's like a good.
I have not gone to that level of sadness. I like Logan. I play where there's a lot of space and a lot of people we know are not in for the same reason. It's too competitive. One reason people like Logan and I got in GGs was because there was potential. There was a lot of great SLDs, especially 4 or 5 years ago, that you could get for nothing. And, those pay off. So doing stuff like that, kind of thinning my herd. One of my friends who's a pretty big investor helped me just see some things differently and really kind of set me on, this is stuff I really should be getting rid of. And just, gave me some strategy that I've really taken forward this year. And, this is probably the least amount of time I've spent domaining in the last 4 or 5 years, just because I had surgery at the beginning of the year. So that was a couple months, and I bought a new place and redoing it. And I'm trying not to kill myself. Now, on the flip side, my results probably indicate.
I mean, let's think about
that. They're not terrible, but
because when you buy domains versus you sell them, I mean, you rarely buy and sell them in the same year, right? So,
well, last year, 10% of my sales were names I bought that year. I'm definitely leaving some stuff on the table, probably, but it's doing well-ish, and I'm going to be getting back to it more heavily in a nicer place in about 2 weeks.
As soon as your new condo is renovated.
So, I'm setting up an awesome space up there for me to work. And
it's not just an office, it's custom built for domain investing, right? It's just...
it's a desk and a chair, but, more walls.
Awesome. Well, guys, listen, I know my listeners, and certainly I appreciate you coming on the show to talk about your sales. Logan, I hope your success the first half of this year continues into the second half.
Thank you.
Mark, I hope you see a turnaround here on those high dollar sales. So thanks to both of you guys for coming on today and sharing the results.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun.
My guests this week have been Logan Flatt of Media Code and Mark Levine, Domain Theory. That's a wrap on this week's Domain Name Wire podcast. You can listen to all previous episodes at dnw.com/podcast or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening.